In a world where we've created comfort and ease and we've sanitized all of the things around us, I fear there's a possibility that we're losing something, and that's our wildness and the inspiration that comes from that. Today, I'm in an area to try to find some of that wildness, and it's an area that has inspired many, including one of America's greatest painters. So I hope you enjoyed this one, and thanks for coming along. We are on the east side of Muscongus Bay today. I'm here exploring a chain of islands, George's Islands, with two goals in mind. One is I want to check out Little Griffin, which is a campsite on an island a little further at the end of the chain. And then the last two islands at the end of the chain were owned by famous American painter Andrew Wyeth. He spent his summers there, he painted from there. So I'm out here today to explore what might have inspired him in this area. George's Islands is a collection of a half dozen or more islands of varying sizes, stretching roughly from Port Clyde south, maybe 3.5 miles. There'll be a lot of little islands to pass through, be a couple of open crossings to navigate, but a fairly protected set of islands to continue to island hop as we make our way south towards the open ocean. What are they doing over here? Looks like there is mussel bags or oyster bags. I'm not really sure what the hell these are. These appear to be big bags of seaweed. Do you know what these are? If you know what these are, tell me in the comments. Just getting my bearings again as I was talking to y'all. I lost a little bit track of where I was, so I had a moment and just look around and tried to place all of the islands I was seeing with where I thought I should be on the chart. It's a new area, so I don't really have any reference points built up of exactly what I'm seeing. I've got a pretty good sense of the islands that I'm aiming for. Burnt Island, and I see the headland on Burnt Island, so that makes sense to me. And then the larger island to what's at the west must be Allen Island. So I know where I'm heading, but I just had a moment of not knowing exactly where I was on the chart. It's not uncommon for me to write down what islands I pass or where I am along my journey, just so I don't lose track, particularly in new areas, of what side of what island I was on. And yeah, I could pull out my phone or my Garmin InReach app and figure out exactly where I am, but I like being able to do it without that, knowing I have that as a backup, but just being able to do it on my own. If you've got a Google Maps window open at home and you're following along, I left Port Clyde and went to the north side of Hupper Island and then Blubber Island, Hupper and Blubber Islands, and then crossed over to Teal Island. And I'm aiming for a small channel between McGee and Barter. A friend said, check it out, it's not to be missed in the area. I might not have enough water. So sorry, Brad, I might not be able to check out the area you said I should check out if I can't get in. I see clear water. Is that just another pool? Yeah, I see some water flooding in over here. This is definitely going to be a suck it in as we try to get through. I don't know about getting out. I might not be able to get out without carrying my boat over. And I'm not even convinced I'm going to get over without without scraping my boat, but there's like a little whitewater channel here. All right, Brad, this is for you, buddy. Be thinking about you with any subsequent gel coat repair that may or may not happen. Yeah, I think we got plenty of water. I'm being dramatic. It's kind of cool. Did hit something. Not too bad though. Oh, hey fish. Whoa, you're cool. I paddled through that little tongue of water and into this little pool, and I was going to get out and scramble over and just get a camera on the shore looking at that water flooding over, but it's already filled up enough that it didn't, it's a lot of fish, little tiny bait fish. It's already flooded enough where that tongue of water isn't noticeable anymore. This is narrow. Suck it in. Will he get out the other side? Dun dun dun. Stay tuned to find out. According to the chart, there's the thinnest sliver of blue, unlike that side where there was not blue, it was green and had a drying height in it. There's the thinnest sliver of blue through here. Narrow, but the thinnest sliver. Okay, seagull. Had a few glimpses of it today, and I had to pull my phone out to confirm because getting a chart out of a wet chart case and refold it and back in is kind of a pain in the ass. So yeah, I broke the phone out and confirmed that between some of these islands, way in the distance, I'm seeing Monhegan Island, which if magical island names in Maine are a thing you're interested in, you'll have no doubt have heard of Monhegan Island. Seems like it's in a bit of haze and a little bit of fog out there. And it was supposed to get a little foggier today, particularly tonight, so I'm not entirely surprised that that is off in the distance in fog. I'm at the southwestern side of Barter and just kind of planning my route. I think I'm going to jump across to Thompson and then follow the shore along Thompson until I can jump over to Little Griffin. So let's go see what Little Griffin's like. I find so many areas of Maine captivating, as I'm sure so many others did and Andrew Wyeth did. Maybe not on a day like today where it's overcast or hazy and the light isn't that great for photography or painting for that matter. Everything is kind of in shadow, or there's not a lot of definition, there's not a lot of moodiness. But on days there are, this coastline is just spectacular. This is my first paddle since coming back from my trip along the west side of British Columbia with some friends. A lot of British Columbia struck me like parts of Maine, like parts of the Bold Coast in particular. The rock features and the ruggedness, particularly when in British Columbia maybe the mountains were shrouded in fog. But then when the mountains cleared and you've got this 2,000 foot cliff mountain face just, tumbling down to the sea, that's pretty spectacular. We don't quite have that here. Not even quite have it. We don't have anything remotely like that here. While we have tall cliffs, there are no enormous mountains along the sea like the west side of Vancouver Island. On that Vancouver Island trip, I was really aware of my left shoulder. I've been struggling this season with just a little bit of tenderness in my left shoulder. And I noticed when I'm paddling, I could feel it tweak every once in a while, early in the season in particular. And I was really aware, I was gonna say nervous, but I wasn't nervous. I was aware that I needed to pay attention to it. I needed to strengthen it and protect it so that when I was on the water for 8 days in British Columbia, my shoulder didn't become a problem. So I've been focusing a lot this season on keeping a really tight paddler's box. The space between my paddle and my chest. Some people talk about like holding a beach ball or a pizza box in the area between your chest and your paddle, and really focus on rotation. Instead of doing T-Rex arms to paddle, can you rotate and paddle? And that's helped. But the other thing that I noticed has helped is focusing on control hand. So this principle that the hand closest to the water is the one doing the work. And you'll probably even see me like relax the hand that's, the blade that's not in the water as a reminder for myself not to over grip, as well as just to focus on that control hand. And I noticed what I was doing with my left shoulder, because I'm left-handed, I might be a little bit more left side dominant, is even when I was using my right blade in the water, I was still kind of pushing it with my left hand, and that shape, when the force isn't behind your elbow, can open up your shoulder for injury. So I've been trying to stay a little bit more compact this season, a little tighter in my paddling, trying to keep my elbow behind the force and not open my shoulder up to injure it, to hurt it. So I was conceiving of this episode and thinking about coming out to these islands where Andrew Wyeth made his home and no doubt drew inspiration from. I was thinking a lot about, how I get inspiration from wild places and how we shut that off. How we create scenarios where we because it's easier and faster and more comfortable and more convenient, we take away a lot of the wildness in our life. Rounding the final little island before making my way into a channel that I expect to see little Griffin in. Let's go see what the landing's like this time of the tide. Tied the boat up and coming to check out the camping area on Little Griffin. Heck yeah, that's a nice spot. 10 out of 10 wood camp. That's beautiful. Nice and flat. Just enough of the breeze. Sunny. Yeah, okay. Gonna add this to my list. There's a really nice sandbar between Little Griffin and a ledge that I think at most times of the tides would be a piece of cake to get into. At high tide, or getting close to high tide, roughly where we are now, not as much room for a kayak, but you can kind of make your way in. It's pretty calm. I would imagine this stays pretty calm in here. You could get a couple more sights up here in the rocks if you needed to. I am kind of a sucker for that grass though. I just crossed the channel that connects Little Griffin and Davis and did some quick camera things here on Davis. Little Griffin is lovely, first of all. There's a beautiful little grassy area up in the trees a little bit, but you still get some breeze coming in, which is nice. And then there are a couple of spots around the top of the beach and the cobble. Could easily get 3-4 tents in, smaller tents pretty comfortably. They'd be tight, but you could definitely fit that in. It's a lovely little spot. It is managed, and the people who manage it ask that you contact them to get permission to camp on it, but you know the spiel by now. Go join the Maine Island Trail Association. All the info is there. Sort yourself out, and tell me when you go camp on Little Griffin. There was a family there enjoying the beach. They brought a motorboat in from Friendship, which is further, a little deeper in the bay. And it felt a little weird walking around with the camera, so I kind of kept a low profile and didn't spend a whole lot of time there, but captured some things of the campsite to show you. And then just got off. It kind of felt weird doing all the things that I need to do. And then as I was crossing, I noticed that my camera here was just completely fogged over, which will probably happen again. So I just stopped off at Davis Island to try to get rid of some of the condensation behind the lens. So GoPro challenges. Yeah, so Little Griffin, fantastic. It was beautiful. I am now making my way towards Allen Island and Benner Island. Betsy Wyeth purchased the islands and really was just drawn to the landscape and wanted to make them something special, and took a lot of pride in what they were and what they are in this area, and invested just a lot of her spirit and energy into these, knowing also that it would be a place her husband would love to paint. And just recently sold it, within the past decade or so, sold the islands to, or the estate, I guess, sold the islands to Colby College, which does a whole host of things here as sort of an extension campus out here in Muscongus Bay. It's not a terribly big island, Benner Island, so it shouldn't take me too long, but let's see what we can do. It's also looks like it's pretty well protected by Allen Island, which is a much larger island. Yeah, I mean, looking at it, looking at these hillsides, it looks like an Andrew Wyeth painting. I don't know how else to describe that. The mood, the energy, the feeling, just very quintessential Maine. Hi everybody, this is Future Steve. In my past, I ended the episode between Benner and Allen Islands and wrapped up and tied everything into a nice bow and said nothing really interesting happens on crossings. Well, on this crossing, it totally fogged in, which was expected. I knew we'd get fog later today. So when I left the last point I knew where I was, I took a bearing while I could still see, and I could tell the fog was coming in, so I was planning ahead. Took a bearing and then basically just kept paddling lobster buoys that were on my bearing. The fog has started to clear, and I saw a Hart Island, which wasn't what I was aiming for, but it felt like a good place to come to as another geographical location I knew, and I didn't know how quickly the land would clear. So I came to Hart Island, and I'm going to use my trusty protractor just to get one more bearing to where I need to be. And because there's fog, I'm going to make a radio call. So this is 15 degrees true from Hart to where I want to be. And we add, roughly 15 degrees 15 degrees variation here. We've got a west addition to between our true and our magnetic. So I'm going to get a bearing of 30,030. And I am going to make a radio call while I'm still here to let boaters in the area know that I'm here. I'm about to cross a channel, and it's not great to be in a channel in the fog, although it is clearing. You could probably see more land behind me than I could see in a little bit. So I'm encouraged that it is clearing, but it was pretty thick back there. Sécurité, Sécurité, Sécurité. This is White Kayak. I'm a solo kayaker in the vicinity of Port Clyde. I'm making a fog crossing from Hart Island to Marshall Point on a bearing of 030. Estimated transit, 15 minutes. All vessels in the area, please be advised. This is White Kayak standing by on 16. See if anybody had the radio on. See if anybody's listening. Okay, well, Thank you for allowing me to interrupt your regularly scheduled programming. I hope you enjoy what Past Steve had to say. Just rounding the southern point of Benner Island into George's Harbor, the little channel that separates Allen Island from Benner Island. Seeing a lot of the homes and the buildings now on Allen Island. Definitely a lot more going on Allen Island. It's just picturesque, the colonial houses or the New England clapboard houses, weathered gray, along this beautiful little hillside that's just dotted with shrubs and brush. And now on Benner Island, I'm seeing this beautiful old farmhouse or farm buildings. There's a lot of buildings. Well, welcome to George's Harbor between Benner Island and Allen Island. It's absolutely beautiful, and I expected it to be beautiful, as are so many places along the coast. And look, like, it's not a bad thing that we've traded our convenience for this wildness. Our lives are so much better in so many ways. I didn't have to chop wood this morning. I didn't have to haul water up from the well to the house so I could have a cup of coffee this morning. We've got a lot of modern conveniences, and they're fantastic. And I think sometimes we could trade that convenience in for a little bit of what lights us up and what fills us. So what are the things that fill you up? What are the things that ignite your wildness or your inspiration? Is it a hike? Is it a mountaintop? Is it a particularly exhilarating mountain bike ride? Is it an island along the Maine coast? I'd love to know. Throw it in the comments. I'm going to make my way back, and as we know, that long crossings don't make the greatest video footage, so I'm going to save you from watching me paddle in a straight line for 20 some odd minutes, maybe a little bit longer, to get back to Port Clyde. I would love to know your thoughts on, if you're a paddler, your paddler's box. Does that concept make sense to you? Is that something you use? What about keeping the force of your hand behind your elbow to protect your shoulder? Is that something you do that you've got some insider thoughts on? We also talked about power hand, using the hand closest to the water to do most of the work. Again, I find it saves my shoulder on my opposite hand, on my high hand. So what's your experience with that? I'd love to know. All right, friends, well, I hope you have a great time on your adventures and safe paddling until next time. Bye-bye.